Hello everyone, pleasure to be here. I really enjoyed the presentation Biohacking because on our side we're looking at the business of things, and we have to focus on things that have like that can go to scale faster, but a lot of our creativity is really at the grassroots level with biohackers, hardware hackers, and it's really always cool to be in touch with that community. So how does this work? Turn it around. Right button. Okay, excellent. That works. As Osa mentioned, I work with Hax. We're a hardware investor, very focused. We're based in Shenzhen, so those are, for some of you who haven't been to Shenzhen yet, this is how it looks like. It's actually a pretty big city. It's not a factory town like people think. Factory is actually way out. And so quickly about myself. So I actually have a background in as a mechanical engineer, but most of my career has been in strategy and working with startups in the digital space. I did a bunch of different things. So I work in aerospace, in telecom, in gaming, and set up a strategy consultancy. And I joined Hax about 3 years ago when it was still very early. We had rodents in the office, some insects, and it was a very humble beginning. And today, well, we still have some rodents and insects sometimes, but it's a bigger space, so they're harder to catch. Aside from that, so yeah, most of my work and career has been in Asia, mostly out of personal interest. I'm originally from France. I wasn't too excited about working in France when I graduated. I had learned some Japanese, moved to Japan, started to work in telecom and consulting, and then got interested in Korea, moved to Korea, learned a bit Korean, and then got interested in China. It's all in the same neighborhood, one thing leading to another. Moved to Beijing. And then started to work with early stage startups, did some angel investments, and then after that, was kind of wondering what to do because the consulting was doing pretty well, but was getting a bit repetitive sometimes. So that's when I reconnected with the founder of Hax, who was also actually a French guy and had started Hax about a year prior. And he told me, come to Shenzhen and have a look. There's really some cool stuff happening there. And my memory of Shenzhen was on a trip there, stopping in the bus stop and being stolen a bag. That was my memory of Shenzhen. That wasn't really a great place to go. So he tricked me pretty good because I went there and he took me to the nicest area in town that looked a little bit European with galleries and cafes. He said, yeah, I know this is Shenzhen now. It's like, okay. So I signed up, but I mostly signed up because I felt something special was happening. You in this community of biohacking, you probably feel that too, that something's new and something is happening. And what was happening there is that there was this convergence of innovation from around the world with a unique ecosystem to actually transform lab innovation into products. And that used to be a closed space for really big companies and was gradually opening up to startups. So this idea of combining the world's best innovations with a unique ecosystem and then target the global markets was really appealing, and I joined. So quickly about what we do, and I'll have kind of quick overview of what we do at Hax and how we work, and then I'll talk more about what we do regarding I wouldn't call it biohacking, but more like health tech, because it has to sound proper to actually be sold, right? So interestingly, actually, Hax is backed by a fund called SUSV. It's not very famous, but it's very active. It has backed over 500 companies through different programs we run. Hax is the hardware branch. We have another one in life sciences that you could, life sciences and biotech, that actually invested in some of the companies that were mentioned earlier. One, I don't think you developed that one, but the company called Moo-Free, doing milk without cows by doing cellular agriculture, is one of the indie bio companies, and we have a few others like doing meatballs. I know Swedish like meatballs, right? Without the cow. So it's actually cleaner way because you don't use antibiotics, and it's potentially a better way. So there's those type of projects going on in indie bio, and then some other branches. So I'll just skip, we invest globally, so about half of the founders come from the US, half from the rest of the world. We invest a lot in female founders also, emerging markets. More specifically about Hax, so our target is really investing and scaling hardware companies, going from prototype to profit. And there's actually a lot of barriers to do that. our idea is really that hardware, when you talk about hardware, everybody tells you hardware is so hard, hardware is hard. Keep repeating that. And we think it can be easier if you get the right help at the right time. Also, many hardware founders tend to be very isolated because there's just so few hardware startups. So by creating a community, we think we can really support them more effectively. And the last thing that's really interesting with hardware is that it can actually really change the world because it acts on not just on bits, but on atoms. So it can really impact the physical world and the human body, and there's really no app for that. The difficulty, of course, with hardware is that you can't do things just two guys in the garage. You have to be like an orchestra conductor. You need to coordinate with designers, with production, with the retail, and there's a lot of people involved in making things happen. And you need to overcome all those walls that you could. So I have like a few things like that in this presentation, like the 5 walls to success. Maybe will help remember. The first wall is really the confidence wall. Like, can you actually get started? A lot of people talk about ideas, not many actually build prototypes and get started. So that's the first wall. Second one is, can you actually build your prototypes? Do you have the resources to do that? So maker spaces can help you and can get you to a first prototype, but how far can you advance it? Generally, you need extra resources, and that's where hacks come in, is to help advance the prototype toward manufacturing and then get to a real product. And then the other wall that you might face then is, do people actually want your thing? And if you start to think about this once you already manufactured it, it's on market, and then it just become like a dust collecting inventory, then you're really in trouble. Next is, how do you scale? That's one of the big challenges of startups. One of the biggest causes of death is scaling too fast or scaling too slow. You're too slow, competition might beat you. And if you're too fast, you might just collapse under your own weight, on your own cost, because you have too much burn rate. On too much quality problems because you scale too fast. So if you manage to do all this, well, you might win. So our team so far is, so we have 2 locations. I'm based in Asia, between Hong Kong and Shenzhen. And we also have a branch in San Francisco for scaling. We invested in over 160 hardware startups, so it's actually quite a large number. Many of them from US and Europe, a number from Asia, and half B2B and B2C. We cover those categories: lifestyle products, health tech, I'm going to talk about, robotics. So interestingly, robotics, when people think of robots, mostly humanoid robots or big industry things, we actually invested in almost none of those. It's mostly service robotics, very dedicated machines that don't have arms and legs, but actually do a useful job. That would be for another presentation. Infrastructure and fabrication tools that could be used in maker spaces or by tradespeople to make all sorts of things. Some companies have done quite well through our program. Those are all companies with valuations between $10 and $50 million, with growth trajectories that are faster than Fitbit. So we're pretty happy with that. The one at the bottom, actually, OpenTrons, is a pipetting robot that can help if you do biotech experiments, because the whole pipetting business is very tedious when you do by hand, and you can automate it. So it's a popular robot, and it might be interesting for the biohacking lab. Many of our B2C startups go toward the crowdfunding route. It's a great way to get customers and get visibility. So we've done that quite successfully with a number of startups. A bit more about how we work, because those are kind of the results and positioning, but really, when you look at our office, it looks like any other office, like a bunch of people on computers. There's a workshop with a few 3D printers, laser cutter. So it's all about what you don't see, like the invisible assets, such as first the curation, the selection of startups. We have about 500 candidates per program. We select 15, so it's very tight selection, which means that we end up with teams that are not only complete and targeting large markets, and have good prototypes, but also have distinct competitive advantages. And that could be in the science, some research that they've done themselves or they leverage. Software, particularly true for robots with computer vision and other treatments. Second competitive advantage is really the curriculum. We grew over close to 10 programs now, learning how to support startups better, from prototype to launch and then to scale. Those are the things we cover through our curriculum, from positioning of the company to strategy, branding, technical review, introducing resources, learning how to do iterative prototyping, and then launch, because even if you do a great product, if you don't know how to launch it, you won't have a business. The last phase is for scaling. Some teams do that on their own. Some join the scaling program in San Francisco once they have a product. The third advantage is the community. So that's what you are here. And you can see the advantage of having people to talk to solve problems faster. So that's what we try to build through our selection. In our office, there's about 100 people that are very, very skilled and also very collaborative because they don't compete with each other in the way we select projects. And the last advantage is being in China, actually. So all around us is the world's best supply chain for electronics. It's like the electronics capital of the world. And it brings you, actually, for startups, not only cost advantages, but actually speed. And that's really what matters for startups. The teams coming from Silicon Valley tell us that they can do in 1 week like what they do in the months back home. So it's really a lot of time saving. Our program, where we invest $100,000 per company on 4 months of support, means that they can do about a year of development. So that's a huge advantage. So essentially what we try to build through Hax is a kind of a in between the first-class resources that multinational companies have access to on the hard DIY, where you have to do everything yourself. So we built kind of an API to China's supply chain in the middle. And interestingly, that means that those companies we invest in are typically between 2 and 5 founders, become kind of multinationals, leveraging resources in many places to do research, generally back home, development and manufacturing with Shenzhen, and sales wherever the market takes them. So the advantage is actually of building things back home and doing research there is that it's generally easier to hire people and cheaper to hire than in Silicon Valley, where everybody's going, but maybe not effectively. So one example of a company we invested in Sweden, based in Malmö, the founder is actually an ex-Apple guy, worked for Apple for 7 years, but when he started his own company, he realized he wouldn't have access to the same amount of resources, obviously. So not only he needed to find like ways to do more for less, but also to go much faster. So he created an interesting security device that instead of using cameras on videos, uses sound and air analysis and temperature to recognize what's going on in your home. So that's just an example. I have a little quote for him. So he says, like, basically, he gained a year of product development coming to China. So it's really important for a startup because a year of product development is also a year of burn rate. And it's a year advantage compared to your competition. So that's what I have about just the Hax introduction. If you want to see more, we publish some reports, we write articles on TechCrunch. There's a fantastic documentary about Shenzhen that's been done by Wired, and you can get it for free online. Lasts about an hour. So now let's look at Hax portfolio, and I just went into health tech. So we don't have that one, but we have a lot of other ones. And in health tech, there's really a lot of interesting things emerging, and it's really difficult to define them. So in some cases, we actually had to invent words to actually define those categories. So sports tech, the old activity like step tracker is evolving toward coachwear. So devices that not only track information, but actually help you improve. To give an example, this is a running tracker that has 3 sensors that basically builds a biomechanical model of your leg and your form so that it will help you improve your running form and also avoid injuries. So that's one example. Similar one for skiing, not only can recognize the orientation of the skis, but has pressure sensors inside the ski boot to understand how you're standing in your skis and can help you improve your skills. So they're actually working with the junior ski Olympic teams in the UK and France to basically get feedback on their product. This one is a low-cost motion capture sensor network. So it basically creates a mesh and can allow you to do motion capture. Typically, it's something quite expensive to do, and they made it really easy and affordable. Wellness tech, another category. This one is an emotions tracker using a number of basically physical parameters to recognize key emotions during your day. So it can help you manage, your own inner states, but also at the end of the day, you can look at like how was your day and start make correlations between what happened and how you reacted. And let's say you spend a lot of time in front of the TV, and at the end you don't feel so great. And or if you spend a lot of time with, let's say you have kids, for example, and you feel very happy, then you can start to see the results of that and be more conscious and make like better life decisions. This one is a kind of original one. So there were all those activity trackers, and those guys came up with a new sensor, a really flat sensor, and they decided to focus on all the time we're inactive, sedentary, sitting, which is most of the day, right? And so they created this sensor, first in the shape of a smart cushion that tracks your posture, your sitting time, but also gets your stress level through your heart rate variability and your breathing patterns. So it can really tell you how you're doing while you're sitting. This sensor actually is really, really accurate. So here's a quick video of the sensor. Sorry, there's a bit of a loud sound. It's okay, I'll just turn it off. So the sensor is below the mattress versus another one attached to the finger, and they get basically the same reading. So it's really, really amazing technology using a lot of signal processing to get that result, and can make us more conscious of how we do during the day. But you can imagine having this into beds, in hospitals, into cars, into airplanes, either for better service or to even just give some understanding to, if let's say you're driving and you're actually really tired and your breathing starts to slow down, your heart rate starts to slow down, and then your car can tell you, well, you'd better be careful. Or if you're too stressed out, your car can also tell you, well, maybe you should take a little break. Or if your passengers are too stressed out, maybe you should slow down. Other one, we actually had a visit to the light research lab in KTH, and this is a startup that actually uses light therapy to help you get the right dose of the right light during your day to improve your health. We also have all sorts of things in sex and baby tech. So this is kind of the oldest project in that category. Was one of the very first smart vibrators for long distance couples or hands-free usage. Smart tampon, another project. A fertility tracker. Pregnancy tracker. This one is a device to help mothers communicate their biosignals to their premature babies, so that can help them grow better. This one is a non-contact sensor and baby video journal. And for the gentleman out there, a device to track erectile dysfunctions. Somebody said yes. Finally. Finally something for me. Okay, so therapeutics. So those are wearables that actually can heal you. For example, this is a sleeping mask that can put you to sleep in 10 minutes using light and sound patterns that trigger basically this sleep state in your brain. This gentleman discovered that visiting the booth in the trade show, just sat down, tried it, and fell asleep. So that's actually not the actual commercial of the thing, but I thought that was pretty brilliant. We also have some devices that look very simple and technologically are quite simple in terms of hardware, but can have really smart software. So this one is focusing on a condition related to unconscious body behaviors, such as nail biting, hair pulling. There's millions of people affected by this. And they don't really have other solutions other than counseling that costs a lot of money and is not very efficient. So this device can actually recognize quite precisely gestures to basically warn the user of what's going on so that they can stop. So they did some tests with pretty hardcore nail biter with the last version, and that actually led to that person stop in about 2 weeks after many, many years of nail biting. So you know who you are. Right. Another one tracking, this one is for anxiety and stress, using heart rate variability and giving you biofeedback with little gentle vibrations to help you understand better when your panics or anxiety starts. I'm going to skip this one. This one is a smart insole initially for diabetic patients. Who lose sensation in their feet and then can develop sores that can lead to amputations. So this can help them avoid those problems. Interestingly, actually, this company started as a medical device company, but then when people doing running and even golf saw that, they said, hey, I want that in my shoe because I want to know how my form evolves. Am I front foot, back foot after my first 5K? Is my form changing? And even people golfing want to know like where they're basically how their posture is affecting their play. Other tech is going more inside the body, looking at what's going on inside. So metabolic tech, for example, this device is a basically multi-blood tester, tracking a lot of different markers with just a single drop of blood. So you just put in there, and then it gives you some results, particularly for diabetic patients. Interestingly, this is what they applied with 3 months prior. It was a bit bigger device. And initially, they wanted to do like a device that connects to your phone, but then they were in Shenzhen. We told them, why don't you just make your own phone? Why not? And that's what they did. So in 3 months, they engaged with suppliers of Android phones, and they said, well, we actually don't want to make a phone, so can you remove the phone function? We'll keep everything else. We'll keep the Wi-Fi, we'll keep the radio module, but we don't really want the voice thing, because otherwise it becomes like FCC regulated, and it's a whole sort of headache. So they did that, and now they're doing really well. They're testing in Korea at the moment with 8,000 diabetic patients. This one is another device. It's kind of cool little gadget that can help you understand your digestion. So generally you learn about your digestion after the fact, sometimes misfortunate events. This one can help you understand if you have food intolerances by tracking the presence of hydrogen in your breath. Because when you don't digest something very well, it basically creates hydrogen in your intestines that goes into your bloodstream, goes into your lungs, and that you breathe out. Actually, the same happens with garlic. So the garlic breath, actually not because of something in your mouth, it's because it goes in your blood. So that's very helpful for people who suffer from IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. This one's hydration tracker. I'm going to skip. This one is another type of blood analysis. The first one is doing like more chemical analysis. This one is using imagery to recognize blood types, particularly for emergency situations with transfusions. Otherwise, if you don't know the blood type of people, you always end up using the same stock of O negative that's compatible, like universal donor type of blood. And that's just the first step. They want to create use the same technology to be able to detect diseases, including AIDS. So that can really help a lot in many locations. Home wellness, this is just kind of simple things. Goes on our environment affects us, so light, but also air quality and temperature and things like that. So this one monitors what's around. I'm going to finish just with a few examples of more like hardcore things. So this one is actually don't have a visual for it because it's still going through the program at Hax at the moment. It's headphones to help you work by helping you focus. So a little bit similar to what this does for entertainment, this does for work, using brainwave sensors. This one is even more hardcore. It uses transcranial focused ultrasound to stimulate your neurons. And that's the first applications is to help treat depression and Alzheimer's disease. So they already have really good results with human patients for depression. They're going through animal testing for Alzheimer's, and they also have excellent results at the moment. So you can also imagine that since it can focus a location in your brain quite like up to about 5 centimeters deep, any place, a location about the size of an M&M, you could imagine you could stimulate maybe other areas that are not concerned with depression. But I'll let you figure out what you want to stimulate in your brain. I think I have a couple more things. Bionics. This one is for back pain, which is one of the problems from like all the sitting we're doing. Generally, when you have strong back pain, you need to go to a chiropractor, and they kind of pull you, or they use like some kind of medieval-looking device to try to relieve some pressure in your spine. It's temporary and doesn't really solve the problem very well. So this is basically a robotic corset that can help support your upper body while you rebuild muscles around your spine. So it's a pretty cool project. And to finish, implants. So if you don't have your RFID, you can get one. And if you don't have enough, you can get this. It's an implant when you have spinal fusion surgery. So if you have really severe back pain, maybe you'll need to have this operation called spinal fusion, where basically A surgeon will remove the disc between two of your vertebrae, put a little device called a cage, and then the bone will grow around it and fuse the vertebrae so that there's no movement and it doesn't pinch nerves anymore. The problem of those surgeries is that about 20% of them fail. That's 1 out of 5. Kind of problematic because it becomes really painful. Imagine bone growing the wrong direction. It's kind of not cool, right? So what this does is that it has a little circuit inside that can be activated using induction from outside. And the current that's the electric field created guides bone growth and accelerates it. It's basically called electrostimulation, and that basically helps drop the failure rate from 20% to less than 5%, which is better. So that's I think that's about all I have. And to share a couple of final words about what's going on at large in the hardware space, a couple of trends. So I don't know if you heard about the company called Xiaomi or Xiaomi, depending where you call it. So they started in smartphones, but they expanded their product line to so many things. We call that their approach is actually to offer high quality, low cost devices by doing direct sales. And the problem is that if you're competing with them, they can undercut you just because of the way they sell, not even because the product is necessarily much better. Just recently, among the many things they launched, they released basically a 4K camera drone for $450. So that's like half the price of a DJI drone, or a third of defunct 3D robotics. So that's important because that means that the level of technology that you need to be able to exist as a startup is getting higher and higher. That used to be a very innovative device, just like activity trackers were a few years back. But today it's a commodity. Xiaomi also does an activity tracker similar to Fitbit that lasts about a month instead of 3 days or 1 day or whatever. And it costed like less than $15. So basically, it's what's great is that there's more and more innovation, more and more startups. But what's challenging is that it's getting harder and harder to compete with big companies that can actually commoditize things really quickly. As the guys from 3D Robotics, which was the American leader in drones, discovered, they basically gave up doing hardware to focus on software. Not sure how long they're going to be around with that strategy, but it just shows that it's really difficult. Couple of other news also, because we go around the world a lot. We meet a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of investors, and we get a sense of what's going on. And what's going on is that there's a bit of hardware winter coming. And that's tough because it was already difficult to raise money for hardware startups because many investors are not familiar with it. Most of them have done software for 20 or 30 years. But because a number of hardware companies have actually had trouble, despite the amount of money they raised, now investors are more and more reluctant to actually put money into hardware. So that's a problem. There's a bit of a good news there, is that what I call temporarily, until I find a better name, red money, and that's money from Chinese investors. Because Chinese investors don't worry so much about hardware, because the last time something was made in China was this morning. So they don't have a problem with hardware. Now trying to bring manufacturing back to China, it's there. So they're much more confident, and they also can, in some cases, add value really to startups, helping them to connect to the supply chain. So today you find Chinese investors all around the world. You find a lot of them in the Valley. You find them going in groups to Israel with a lot of tech companies. They go to Germany for all things related to manufacturing and robotics and things like that. I think there's some delegations coming to Sweden as well. So there's really a lot of interest. Of course, there's a bit of a learning curve to understand how to work with them, but it's a good news for hardware startups. So that's all I have, and I'm happy to take questions. If I don't have time, please email me. Thank you very much.